Welcome to Sew and Tell, where sewists from fashion, theater, and indie sewing bring their different perspectives to the hottest topics in the sewing community. I'm Kate Zaynard.
And I'm Meg Healy. Today on the podcast, we're welcoming National Embroidery Month with a discussion of machine embroidery. Amanda was unfortunately unable to record with us today, but instead we have the fabulous Ginger Sheila Tatic joining us as a guest host. So welcome, Ginger.
Yes,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I feel honored to be here and so excited to see you ladies.
As you may remember, Ginger joined us when Meg was away on her honeymoon. I guess she gets a pass on that one. So we're just delighted to have her back with us today.
Yes, no, and such a fun month to come back in. Yay.
Oh, yes, Embroidery Month.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting. It really is. How's everybody doing before we start talking about that?
Good. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I was super busy this whole weekend because today we actually launched our Zen courses on the Sew Daily TV class. So I was updating all of the files. What's so amazing about this course is it comes in 3 different variations. You have Zen 1, Zen 2, and then you can buy it as a combo as well. And so I was uploading a lot of files this weekend.
That sounds like a lot of work, but I do appreciate anything Zen.
Oh, yes, yes. And yeah, so you guys can find out all that information on there. And, for National Embroidery Month, this was the course of choice that we're starting the month out with. And yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a good weekend, Meg?
Yes, I did. I was recovering from traveling, and as you guys might not, you guys know, Ginger works with us. She's a lovely producer that works, and she works a lot with me when I travel to go film. She is absolutely amazing. Picks me up, drops me off at my hotel. She's so I feel like we see each other over video, but I feel like I've been seeing you all week, so it's great to always see you guys in person. So yeah, I was just recovering. It's just that 2-hour time change, It really can just, that little tweak took me all weekend to adjust.
It really
so I'm ready
makes
to
a
go
difference.
back.
Yep, it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
And I will drive you anytime, anywhere, Meg. It's a joy.
Yes.
Yeah, and then also before we jump into, I wanted to also plug in with a special coupon code, a sequin webinar that I'm doing next. It would be, Monday. So when you're listening to this, it will be Monday, February 10th. And I haven't done a live webinar in so long, and so I'm excited to jump back in. So if you want to join me live, it starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and for a special code for Sew and Tell listeners, you can join me at $5 off just using the code Sew and Tell 5. And that's with the symbol of and you get patterns with it, and I talk all about sequins and just fun stuff. So just wanted to get that in there before I forgot.
Oh yeah, Meg, I love the jumpsuit that you made for this webinar.
Yeah.
It's so cute. It's like lime green sequin. Of course, it's lime green sequins. It's a jumpsuit. She drafted the pattern herself from 2 different, for a top pattern and a bottom pattern, and it's just super cute. So yeah, I'm gonna sneak in there and figure out how she did that. For sure.
And they can register at Sew Daily TV, and then once you register, you're going to get an email that tells you how to sign up at GoToWebinar, because we actually run the live webinar through GoToWebinar, but you have to basically buy the webinar on the Sew Daily TV site.
All right.
So, but use that coupon. It comes in handy.
Good to know. All right. Shall we jump in? Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So February, of course, is National Embroidery Month. You may or may not have known that, but we know that. Now, I don't want to slight hand embroidery. We'll even talk about it in a little bit. But of course, as I am the managing editor for Creative Machine Embroidery, I do have a bit of a soft spot for machine embroidery and the amazing things you can do with it. So let's talk a bit about embroidering with a machine. So the first thing I want to ask you ladies is, what do you actually know about machine embroidery? Because I don't know what our listeners know, so let's get that laid out first.
Meg.
Anybody?
Yeah, Meg, you want to go first on this one?
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go first. I know a little bit. I'm dabbling. I'm kind of a self-taught machine embroiderist as I got an embroidery machine a couple years ago. And as I said before this podcast, I don't like reading instructions, so I just thought, oh, let's just try and give it a go. And some failed attempts, and I can do minor things, but I did just get a new embroidery machine in last week. It's the SVP. It's the Viking Husqvarna Designer Brilliance 80, and I'm super excited to experiment with that because that's like a more intense embroidery machine. So I know a little. I've done some here and there, but I definitely have questions.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. No, and mine is very, very minimal. I'm pretty new to garment sewing. I've been quilting for a while and haven't had the opportunity to really use a lot of embroidery. I have used, like, on the machine that I have, it's not an embroidery machine, but like I've spelled out my name, to put on the back of a quilt, and like so
oh, nice.
That's kind of fun. Just that type of thing. But all the other stuff that I've done, it's literally been when you've been holding my hand and kind of walking me through. Kate has been so generous to kind of lend whenever I needed anything. She's been like, sure, let's go. And so mine's pretty minimal too, so lots of questions on my end too.
Well, the kind that you do on your regular sewing machine is also machine embroidery. Technically, I mean, there are two different kinds of ways that you can think about machine embroidery. You could think about it as the ones that use the specialty machines, or just doing any sort of embroidery on machines, which, as you know, is perfectly doable on a lot of machines, especially if they have fancy stitches. So just a quick description for any of you who aren't familiar with the process. Machine embroidery usually involves a machine that reads a special type of file, a design file, and you put that into the machine in some way, and it reads the file, and then it knows where to stitch to make this design. And you know what these look like. This is like if you have an embroidered baseball cap or anything like that, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at machine embroidery. And so the process of doing it, you take your fabric and put it into a special embroidery hoop, not the kind that you can generally buy at the store that are just round and tighten up, but they're designed specifically for the machine you're using, and they hook into the machine. And then you put it in there with stabilizer, and then you put that onto the machine and you change out your colors, and it will stitch the design for you. So hopefully that made some sort of sense. I feel like maybe I skipped ahead a bit, but so when we talk about hoops, we're talking about those specific kind of machine hoops today. And mostly we'll be talking about the kind you do on a specialty machine. But as I mentioned, there are a couple other ways to do it. You can use specialty stitches that you have on a regular sewing machine, or you can do what's called free motion embroidery, and that's where you disengage your feed dogs or cover them with something so they can't grab a hold of your fabric, and then you use a free motion foot and you just move your fabric however you want to, and stitch as fast as you want to create whatever kind of stitches you want to create. Just by moving your hands around,
that sounds terrifying.
I know it does. I've never actually tried it, and I'm also kind of terrified by it. For that one, though, you just need the regular kind of embroidery hoop. Have you ever tried it, Meg?
Yeah, I have actually tried that. I made a pair of oven mitts. Let's just say they are in the garbage. It didn't work out so. It was just ugly. Like, it was just a bunch of loop-de-loop. It was right. I more did it just to experiment with it, but I it's definitely interesting. And beware the hands too. That was kind of scary.
Yeah, one of these days I want to try it out. And it's actually really helpful for quilting if you want to do it that way, because you can free motion quilt like that, do your stippling or whatever. The other thing is, I have seen some wonderful things created with free motion embroidery, and I'm going to actually link in the show notes to this textile artist who makes these designs with free motion embroidery, and then she forms them and starches them into these like these shapes, and they're beautiful. They're like sculptures made of thread, and they're really cool. So that's Anne Honeyman, and I will be linking that in the show notes so you can take a look because it is really cool.
That's awesome. Well, and I feel like when you do the free motion, it takes away the magic of like when you hit the button and it goes and you get, it's like a ghost that's in there doing everything. So.
Right. Well, and yeah, with the free motion, you're working the entire time, whereas with the regular machine embroidery, you just put it in and you can walk away. And if nothing goes terribly wrong, when you come back, you'll have something pretty cool.
Yep. It's like magic.
It is. It is. I'm always amazed by it. The funny thing is actually, my husband got a 3D printer for Christmas, and I was sitting watching the process, and I'm like, it's just like an embroidery machine, except that there's that extra dimension, the height dimension. And I have this terrible problem when he starts printing something. I always ask him, "What are you stitching?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm printing." What are you printing?
Oh, right.
So I think we've kind of already answered my next question. My next question, which was, have you tried machine embroidery? So what kind of projects have you actually made using machine embroidery at all?
Well, one of the things that I did, which you totally helped me with, is my daughter's like really into cosplay. And so we had done this really cool, it was a Captain Marvel jumpsuit, like the one that the main character, oh, help me, Kate.
Carol Danvers.
Yes, Carol Danvers. I was like, oh, no, God, I'm never going to live that down. Carol Danvers wears. It's her flight suit. And on there, the machine that we were using, it was a Brothers machine, and they have a deal with Marvel. And so they had all these different Marvel characters that we could pick from. And we ended up picking oh my God, it was the cutest little Nick Fury. I can send you guys a picture, and you guys can take a look at it. It is absolutely adorable. So on the jumpsuit, we had actually, Kate had helped me stitch that. And that was literally the first thing I think that I had ever stitched, and the whole process was it was so much fun. Like even just picking the thread, like I never thought, just like seeing all the color choices and all that, like I don't know, I was just kind of on the edge of my seat as you were walking me through the whole process, and it was great.
It could be really overwhelming, thread choosing.
Yeah, definitely. So, but you were such a pro. You were just like, oh yeah, this will work, that'll work, and I'm like, awesome. I'm like, sweet, yeah, this is great.
Thank you. I didn't bring on Ginger just so she could compliment me, just so y'all know she's just doing it. So
I can't help it.
How about you, Meg? I mean, not compliment me. I mean, what projects have you made?
Oh. Now, what great things do you have to say about? No, I will say you did save a project for sure. When I was embroidering Minky, I was like, this does not work. And you're like, do you have that film that goes on top? I was like, no. And you're like, yeah, you might need that. And it's perfect after that. Yeah, I made a lot of tea towels and gifts. I love a basic tea towel because then you can really make it's all about the embroidery, and I just think it's like a fun gift. You can really customize it to who you're giving it to, and like that was really fun doing those. But what I've done for myself is my favorite thing is I made the denim jacket and I embroidered that, and that was super cool. I still wear it all the time. I'll definitely post a picture in the show notes, but that's kind of my main thing that I have embroidered and worn. I have an embroidered skirt, but it turned out, it was kind of an experiment and it was super ugly, so I got rid of that. But my denim jacket's still in the rotation.
Yeah, that jacket's really cool. I love that one.
Yeah. And I feel like denim's one of those things any type of embroidery that you use, it makes the embroidery look even cooler. Because I do feel like sometimes with embroidery, there's this fine line between, and not that I love my grandma to death, but I'm not ready to do like the grandma embroidery, and I feel like it does get kind of a bad rep on that front.
Yeah.
But I do feel like you put something on denim and it just instantly makes it cool.
Yeah, I think
for sure.
I don't know. Maybe if you straight up did like a teddy bear on denim, it still wouldn't be cool.
True.
But almost anything else.
If it's for a little girl, then the little girl can look cool.
That's true. That's true. It's like the edgy teddy bear.
Exactly.
An edgy teddy bear.
Oh, they exist. Trust me.
If it's out there, she'll find it.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of projects myself because I usually end up doing projects for the magazine, either just to fill in space or when we do collections with each magazine, and we always do a project to feature them. And somehow I ended up doing most of those in the past few years. So I've done tea towels, and I've done, and now I've lost it. I don't even know. I've done garments, and I've done pillows, and I've done all sorts of things. I think my favorite thing I ever did was for the magazine. It was a little pet bed. And it is personalized to actually there are two of them, and they are personalized to my cats. So they have little pictures of, I took a embroidery design and, chose the colors to make them look kind of like my cats, and then they say their names in this really nice font along the side, and then they're very fuzzy, like soft minky and faux fur on the top, so the cats actually like to sleep on them, which is pretty amazing.
And do they all know their names? Like they know where to go?
They do know which pillow is theirs, and that's because I put the pillows in the places where they're most likely to be. It's like, so Patsy sleeps on top of the bed, so I'll put the pillow on the bed, and Patsy's sleeping on the pillow.
There you
and
go.
Romulus likes to hang out on this chair, so I'm going to put this pillow on this chair, and Romulus is sleeping on the pillow. So, and I had just enough leftover fabric when my mom got a cat a few months ago. I made him one for Christmas. So my brother cat has a pillow like his niece and nephew.
Oh, you're such a good sister.
Thanks. He doesn't think so. He hides when he sees me. But I know I love him. So when you were doing, this might not apply to you, Ginger, because I know you haven't done much embroidery, but at least for Meg, what was your biggest challenge with embroidery, and what did you learn from it?
Well, definitely just I don't know. I guess also read the instructions is also a great idea. So I would always go back to it. And yeah, well, from the whole Minky experience, I actually tried a velvet moment when I first got my embroidery machine too, and it just went horribly wrong, and I didn't reach out to anyone. So what I did is just embroidered on something else and then cut it out and then hand stitched it to my velvet jacket. And so that kind of worked.
Solution.
So,
yeah.
And also I'm going to ask you about this in our next kind of segment, but it's just my biggest embroidery challenge is really like placement. I can never, and that's what helped me too on the jacket. I wanted them in a specific spot, and I never know the relationship between the hoop and the markings. Like, so I always want to do ready to wear projects, but it's hard because it's easier when you're just doing a piece of fabric, and then I always put the piece on it. But if it's that's what's really hard for me. So I'm just learning kind of that. But definitely the textured fabric is that, see, now I don't even know what it's called. I'm like, that thing that goes over top of it.
It's called a topper.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm sorry, that sounded super snotty.
So,
I didn't mean to. I just forgot for half a second.
Yeah, so that was definitely a huge, big learning curve. And it just really makes it, and also on something underneath it too. I think literally the first thing I ever embroidered, it was just the fabric was in there. There was nothing on top, nothing below it. It was, and so that's definitely my biggest learning curve is stabilizers, and they can really, really make it look so much better, like underneath and on top.
Stabilizers do make a lot of difference.
Yeah.
My biggest mess with embroidery was also with velvet. It was with stretch velvet. And I was going to make leggings, and I wanted to embroider some pretty little designs on the ankles. And I thought I knew exactly what I was doing. I had it all planned out, but I made two terrible mistakes. The first mistake was that I used metallic thread, which would not have been as much of a mistake if I hadn't made the second mistake, which was I decided I needed to shrink the design quite a bit. And really, if you've got a design, if you shrink it on your machine, what it'll do is it'll just make all the stitches smaller. And that's okay for about a 10% shrinkage rate. But if you shrink much further than that, the stitches start to get too small and too dense. And that's what I did. I shrunk it too much, and then so it's making these tiny little dense stitches with metallic thread, which breaks very easily. And so I was like taking 3 stitches and breaking the thread, and I kept trying different things, and nothing I did fixed it. And I finally ended up making this horrible mess. And then I went and I was like, okay, this is like just decent enough that I'm going to go ahead and make my leggings, my velvet leggings. And then that's when I discovered that the fabric I had did not have enough stretch to it, and I couldn't pull them up above my knees. So the whole thing was just an utter failure.
On all fronts, it sounds like. Oh,
yes.
man.
So I learned to be a little bit more careful when I do embroidery with metallics to make sure that I'm making good choices. And I also learned not to shrink my designs too much, or actually to expand them too much, because the same thing happens. The stitches get too big if you try to make them too much bigger. So if you're messing around with it, keep it in that like 10 to 15% range to keep things from going completely sideways.
Yeah, I never even, that's totally a factor. When you enlarge it, the stitches, they get longer between each one.
And then they don't necessarily lay correctly on top of the fabric.
Yeah.
Especially if you have something like velvet with a nap, they're going to end up poking through, and it's just going to be a mess. Though I did later take that knowledge that I got and embroidered on the same velvet and made a top, so I didn't need it to stretch so much. And I did manage to do, I don't think it was the exact same design, but it was from the same collection. And by not shrinking it, and I think choosing just a shiny thread instead of a metallic thread, I did make a very pretty top out of that velvet. So
nice.
Go me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like challenges for me on just trying embroidery are timing, because I do feel like it sounds like it's something that you really do need to kind of practice it in order to really know how to deal with it. And it's like, I'm still learning how to sew garments, and I still have quilts that I want to finish for people. And it's like, where do I find the time to add embroidery to that? Because I have a feeling once I start doing it, I would love it. Like, because it does just add such a nice element to any project.
Well, I think a great place to start is what Meg was saying earlier. Get something that's already made.
Okay.
Or just like a tea towel is a great thing to do, or something like that, and or a pot holder or something.
Yeah.
That's already made. That's already constructed. You don't have to worry about that, and just practice the embroidery technique on something that doesn't require a lot of extra work to it. Because then if the embroidery goes bad, you're like, oh, well, I ruined a tea towel instead of I ruined this thing that I spent 3 weeks sewing. And then if you do have it, then, and if it goes well, then you're like, okay, so now I know how to do this. How can I take that to the next step?
All right. I'm going to start with the tea towels. I like it.
Start with the tea towels. So what do you guys think about machine embroidery versus hand embroidery? What are the benefits and the detriments? How do you feel about those differences? Do you have any thoughts?
I know, Meg, you're not a fan of hands anything, are you? Like hand stitching in general?
Yeah, not a fan of hand stitching. Just my palms just get way too sweaty, and I don't know. I guess the only pro I could see is that it's portable, so it's a good thing to do. It's probably more fun to do, like if I'm traveling, just gonna blind hem a big circle skirt, than if I'm doing like a fun embroidery. So that was like the only pro for me, but I wouldn't know how to work. I don't know how I could make it look nice. That's the only thing. Yeah, I like machine embroidery because I like things exact and pretty, and so that's the only thing.
Yeah. But. See, I find hand stitching stuff a little less not so overwhelming or scary, because when I think of the machine, that's this whole other element that I'm just kind of like not as knowledgeable on.
Right.
Whereas I feel like I've taken, I actually have done some hand stitching embroidery stuff, and I've worked with a couple of instructors that have come in, and they've shown me just some amazing things that you can do that I can add to my quilts or add to any other garments or things like that. So just certain stitches and stuff. So for me, it's more of a control thing, whereas I feel like I have more control if I'm doing it with my hands as opposed to the machine. It's kind of in the machine's hands at that point,
you have to trust the machine to do its thing. And sometimes we were talking about this before we started because we were having some technical difficulties. You come in and you expect it to be exactly the same as it was last time you were here, and it's not always true. And sometimes the technology just decides to.
That's right. Got to be smarter than the machine sometimes, and that's hard.
Yeah, definitely. I like both myself. This is kind of why I asked the question. I like the sort of, it's not exactly immediate. Okay, I've completely lost the word, and now I've got it again. It's not immediate gratification. Okay, that was awful. Anyway, it's not immediate gratification. But it's pretty fast. I mean, you might have something that takes 4 hours to stitch or 6 hours to stitch. So it's not like it's done immediately. But the chances of you having a hand embroidery design that's going to take you 6 hours to stitch is actually pretty small, unless it's way tiny. Which I actually have cross-stitched little ornaments for people, and it took me about an hour and a half each. But most of the time, you're not going to have anything that impressive in that amount of time. So that's fun. But as Meg said, doing it by hand is very portable. It's often smaller. And I feel like there are details sometimes that you can get that you just can't recreate with machines by hand. And then similarly, there's some things that you can't recreate by hand that you can do on the machine. So all in all, it's they're kind of give or take. And I think for me, it kind of depends on my mood. Do I feel like sitting and cross-stitching? I've done a lot of cross-stitching in my life. I'm not as big on the other embroidery stitches. I need to actually get a little bit more into that. Do I feel like sitting there and doing that? A lot of times I do. A lot of times I can't, because I have a cat who loves to sit on my lap and also loves moving thread. And so I have sat down several times in the past couple of months and attempted to work on my cross stitch and gotten about 3 stitches done before I had to stop because she was trying to eat my thread. Oh, no. So, she doesn't really get in the way of the machine embroidery. So there you go. So last question for this section, I'm going to ask you, if you had the skills and the abilities and all the materials, what would be the dream embroidery project that you would make or have?
I'll go first. I thought about this, and I really, really want to make like a lace or a textile where you just hoop something in, water soluble that can disappear, and then you're left with just like a lace or just left with something that you create from scratch instead of embroidering on a fabric. I would love to do something like that where I create a lace for like an insert somewhere, or like a piece, or I don't know. I want to do, that's like my dream. If I just don't know how to wrap my head around that, but I would love to learn more and do something like that. Create like a scalloped edge. You know what I mean? That's even possible, right? That I'm not just thinking of that, right?
Oh, no, it's absolutely possible. We should chat.
Okay.
She's like, that's doable. You can do that.
Yeah, I didn't just make that up, did I?
No, that is a thing. And it's a really cool thing. I love making freestanding lace.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so that's mine.
Cool. How about you, Ginger?
So for me, I don't think I want to be that grand as far as like freestanding lace. For me, it would be being able to just create a garment, probably like a jeans. Like I would love to be able to just have a really fun pair of jeans. I have a couple that I've actually bought at the store that have some embroidery on them, just some fun flowers or fun, funky designs. And to be able to do that on my own, I think I would just be so proud. I would wear them all the time. Like, I did this. So, awesome. Yeah. So for me, I think that would be it. Just a good pair of jeans that have embroidery that I
You were wearing some last week, I think.
Yep. And I actually wore mine today, too. I got my other pair that I love. They've got like these really bright, wonderful flowers on them. Ooh. Can you see?
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, those are very, she just showed this like wonderful floral on her on. It's like the side of the upper thigh. It was super cute. Yeah, the ones we were wearing last week, it was metallic stars. I love that. Love it. Love it.
It was fun. I thought if anybody would appreciate it, you ladies would. So that was why whenever I get the chance to wear stuff like that, it's like, oh, they'll totally love this. So I felt good. You guys all gave me a compliment.
And for the record, we can do that.
Yes.
Just so you know. Mine is mine's enormous in scope, but I would love to have make myself a medieval gown that's just covered with embroidery from head to toe, because I'm like that.
Oh yeah, I could totally see you in that.
But I would probably never actually do it because that's a lot of embroidery, and that's a lot of that's a lot. But yes, my dream would be full on Game of Thrones style, thick embroidery, just gorgeous stuff. Now that was all hand done, by the way. We have a really interesting article about that, which I think is on our website. I'll have to see if I can find it, but it's cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's take a little break, and in a bit let's come back and you can ask me some questions.
Ooh.
Sounds good.
All right.
So now that we have discussed what machine embroidery is, why we love it, what our dream embroidery projects are, now we're going to take advantage of the managing editor, Kate, her of Creative Machine Embroidery, her expertise in the embroidery sector. So I have some questions for you, Kate. And I think, Ginger, if you have any questions too, just hop on in. But I have written some down that I think will help me if I get answers to them in my future embroidery project. So the first one I have for you, Kate, is how do you know what's the best stabilizer for your embroidery project? I know there's spray-on ones, there's fusible ones, there's water-soluble. How do I know if I need one to go away or if I iron on it after? How do you know? Is there any tips on that you can give us?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, my big dramatic tip is I usually Google it if I'm not sure. So I'm actually going to I'm going to take a moment to recommend Embroidery Library, which is emblibrary.com. They have a whole section called Fabrics 101. It's under their projects tab on their main page. And they talk about all of these different fabrics and what stabilizer you want to use and give you tips and tricks for working with those particular fabrics to embroider on them. And so whenever I'm not sure what I need to do, I go and I look on that. And that will usually kind of give me the hint I need if I'm not already sure. The first thing I like to think about if I'm, not just going to straight up Google it, is what is the back of this going to be? Is it going to get seen? Is it not going to be seen? Is it going to be, on your jacket? It's maybe in certain circumstances people might see it, but when you're just wearing it on your body, it's not really going to be obvious. For the pillows I made for the pets, it was completely enclosed within the pillow, so it really didn't matter what the back looked like. And I kind of go from there. I usually use a cutaway if I don't need to worry about what the back looks like. I often use a tearaway when I'm using my, if I'm doing like a in the hoop project, because you usually want to be able to get that really well away from the edges, and the tearaway is usually best for that. Water soluble for anything where the back is likely to be seen, or if you're doing freestanding lace, you need water soluble so it disappears out of the lace. My tip with water soluble, I'm just going to say it right now, go find some that looks like fabric. Because they have the film type, and the film type is great as a topper, but it's usually not really sturdy enough to hold the to hold a lot of the embroidery. It perforates really easily, and then it gets weaker the more you stitch on it. So if you're going to do something that requires a lot of water soluble stabilizer, find some of the stuff that is that looks like fabric. Jenny Haskins has a really nice one. I like that one a lot. I think Sulky has a really nice one too.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, if there's any particular brands that you feel like, because I know sometimes when I go into the store, it's almost as overwhelming as fabric. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many stabilizers to pick from. Like, how do you, are there any you really recommend?
I have certain ones. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. We have a many year long collection of people who produce stabilizer sending us stabilizer samples. And so when I go to get stabilizer, I just go to our sewing room and dig through the stabilizer and find what I need. And half the time it doesn't even have a label on it, so I don't even know what it is. But I will say that, like I said, there's a Jenny Haskins water soluble I really like. I do like Sulky. Their soft and sheer is really nice for like basic stuff, especially cottons and linens. Those are the two that really jump out at me. Floriani has a lot of great stabilizers as well. So really just kind of look and try some out, see what you like. I mean, that's hard to say. It's easy for me to say because I have all of these different ones that I can try. And it's harder if I'm saying, go spend $17 on a roll of stabilizer you might not like. So I don't know. Maybe ask the people at the store that you're at if they have any recommendations. I mean, I'm happy to give like specific stuff if it's like, I need X. But it's harder if I'm just like, just tell me what kind of stabilizer to get. That broadly, it's really hard to answer that question.
And this raised another question I just thought of. Can you just I know I've done this. Can you just use straight up interfacing as a backing? Like just regular interfacing?
You can, but it's not really recommended. And that's because stabilizer is literally meant to stabilize. Interfacing is meant to support your fabric as it's worn. And so it has a certain amount of give and movement because you don't want it to be completely solid and unmoving within the garment that you're using. Whereas when you're embroidering, you do want your stabilizer to be completely solid and unmoving because the stabilizer needs to hold the fabric in place and make sure it doesn't wobble. That's why you'll find a lot of times if you're embroidering on a knit, the recommendation will be that you want to cut away, which is the most stable, because the knit's going to wobble all over the place, but the cutaway is going to keep it in place.
So it sounds like planning out, what you're ultimately going to be doing, is really going to determine the stabilizer that you're going to,
absolutely.
So really knowing like, okay, if it's lace, I'm going to need it to go away. So I need the water soluble and this and that. So really just thinking that through and not just being like, oh, it's stabilizer and grabbing it and going.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to try to make, freestanding lace on cutaway stabilizer because it's not going to go well for you.
Totally sounds like something I would
do. Okay, my next question is, how do you know when to hoop and when not to hoop? I know, like, you obviously have to hoop something if you're embroidering, but sometimes, like, you don't hoop the stabilizer, you do, and I just realized that there's this thing called hoop burn that I never knew about until I read it in CME. And
okay, well, and that's actually what my note next to my question is. It just says hoop burn. So what Meg is specifically talking about is if you if sometimes you need to just hoop the stabilizer and then attach the fabric to the top of the stabilizer without putting it into the hoop. And that is generally because it will have something called hoop burn. And hoop burn basically means you put it in the hoop and you take it out of the hoop and you can still see the hoop on the fabric. So that happens with things with nap. So with some exceptions, like you can actually hoop minky. But if you hoop velvet, when you take it out, the velvet nap will be crushed. And what you're going to have is you're going to see the hoop. Similarly, you can't hoop leather. It's hard to hoop things like vinyl. And sometimes you want to embroider a piece that's already cut out and it's too small to actually fit in the hoop. Right. I've done that plenty of times in my life, actually. So what you want to do in those circumstances is just pick your stabilizer, hoop your stabilizer, and then you take a temporary spray adhesive, or you choose a stabilizer that actually has adhesive on it. You'll hear it called sticky stabilizer a lot of the time. And it's basically like a sticker. Like there's the stabilizer on the bottom, there's a layer of adhesive, and then there's paper on top to keep the adhesive from sticking to things. So you can hoop that, and then you grab like a pin and just score the paper in the hoop, and then you can just peel it out, and then you're left with basically a sticker on stabilizer in the hoop, and then you can press. I like that better than temporary spray adhesive myself, but we're almost out of that stabilizer in our stash, so I've been using the spray adhesive more. But anyway, then you can just press it on. And so the fabric is not in the hoop, only the stabilizer is in the hoop. But as long as you stick the fabric to the stabilizer pretty sturdily, then you can still embroider the same way. So,
wow.
And if you're not sure, get a scrap and put it through the hoop and then pull it out. And if it has left ugly marks that you can't get rid of on your fabric, that's when you need to do something without hooping it.
Nice, but when in doubt, it sounds like just use the stabilizer or just hoop the stabilizer when in doubt, right?
When in doubt, if you're not sure and you're in your field, well, I mean, like if it's quilting cotton, just go ahead and hoop it. It's fine. If it's linen, hoop it. It's fine. But if you're not sure, if it's silk and you're worried that it's going to burn, if it's something like really expensive fabric, leather, any of that, just go ahead, hoop the stabilizer, stick on the fabric, and go from there.
Nice.
Hashtag hoop it, it's fine.
Yeah, hoop it, it's fine. I like that.
Love that. That was actually so helpful. I think one time I hooped the fabric, but like not the stable. I don't know. So, or I'd done a tea towel where it was like, and I had like huge gaps because I don't know. So I never even thought of just to hoop the stabilizer, and then I don't know. But that was great. Kate. That really helped me.
Good.
Oh, okay. So now next question. Any special machine needles? Do I need to, maybe switch the feet? I put on the embroidery unit. Do I need to switch my needle?
I would recommend it. And the reason for that is that when an embroidery machine is stitching, it is usually stitching a lot faster than a regular sewing machine would be stitching. It's going up and down real fast, and that's creating a lot of friction, which is going to make it more likely that the thread is going to break. So embroidery needles, specific embroidery needles, they have a bigger hole, so less friction, and a bigger shank, which is the kind of the cutout spot in the back, which also reduces friction. So go for embroidery needles for basic stuff. You can also, if you don't have an embroidery needle, if you just broke your last one, or if you're trying to do something a little bit more heavy duty and the embroidery needle is just not cutting it, go for a top stitching needle because they're made to take thicker thread, because your top stitching thread is thicker than normal sewing thread. So they also have the bigger hole and the bigger shank to allow for that. So top stitching needles are a great substitution in there. If you're sewing on thicker leather, you'll probably need a leather needle. That's just, you're going to need the cutting point. But for thinner leather, you can often get away with that top stitching needle. And then also I'm going to mention, if you are using metallic thread, I always use a metallic needle. Again, because of friction issues, metallic needles have that bigger eye and that deeper shank. And so they are also usually pretty good for embroidery. Though if you're embroidering with metallic thread, my best recommendation is to slow down your machine. If your machine has the option, slow it as slow as it'll go, because you want to keep that friction reduced as much as you possibly can.
Nice. On the thread front, Is it okay to mix your threads like within an embroidery? Could you do like some metallics in with, something else? Like, does that matter, or do you want?
That's fine.
Okay,
that's absolutely fine. You might want to think about like changing out your needle in the middle of the embroidery.
Okay.
If you're going to like do a metallic step, you might want to put in a metallic needle instead of a regular one. But there are actually no rules about thread. You can do whatever you want.
Nice.
It's a creativity thing.
Awesome. But again, then it becomes overwhelming because then it's like the sky's the limit. And
yes.
I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
what do I like this, but maybe I like that, or maybe I like this or that. So, yeah.
I try to usually stick with either shiny or not shiny.
Okay.
For my own aesthetics. But if you want to mix the shiny and the not shiny, as long as you're doing it mindfully, it's fine.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean shiny rayon polyester, the ones that not actual metallics. But metallics can make great accent,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, this is fun. What's next?
So talking about thread, that just kind of, it's not listed on here, but now I have a question about my bobbin. So it's, okay, so if you are, okay, this might be a couple of questions. So if you're doing a metallic thread, do you need a metallic bobbin? Can I keep the same bobbin? Okay, that's a separate question from the metallic question. Can I just keep the same color bobbin in for like the entire design with different colors tops, or do I have to switch it to the same color for the top thread?
Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I know what you're asking. So what I would say is, again, it's like with the stabilizer, you want to think about whether the back is going to be seen.
Right.
That's how I always think of it. If the back is not going to be seen, or if it's mostly going to be hidden, I just use one bobbin. I use a white bobbin. Maybe if it's a dark fabric, I'll use a black bobbin. That's it. Period. End of story. If you're doing lace, if you're doing freestanding lace, you'll be able to see both sides, and so you want to have a matching bobbin for that. If you are doing just one color, if you're doing everything in one color, it's probably better to do a matching bobbin, just so if anything ends up poking through, it's not weird. For the metallics question, again, it depends on what the final thing is. Most of the time for metallic, I will use a coordinating non-metallic. So if I'm going with gold, like a metallic gold, I'll get like a goldish color back that kind of matches the color. That's kind of my tendency, but you can absolutely use metallic thread in the bobbin. If you're doing like a piece of freestanding lace that's in metallic thread, that's totally fine. But again, you have a tendency, the metallic thread tends to break more. And so if you put something that's not metallic in the bobbin, you kind of have a better chance of not having thread breakages during the stitching.
Now, do you ever use any of the invisible threads as far as like that goes? Because I know I've personally never used them, but I've been intrigued by them, and it seems like this is something where that could be a handy thing.
I never have. I'm not sure how that would work, honestly. I'm afraid it would be problematic because the material's different. But like I said, I've never tried it, so I don't actually have an answer to that question.
Might have to test it and see.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, I've always been intrigued by those, but I've never actually tested them. Something to think about, something to ponder.
Yeah, definitely. Did I answer your question, Meg?
Pardon?
Did I answer your question?
You definitely did. Yeah.
Okay, great. I thought I did. I thought I was following what you were asking, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, you did. You did, and now I'll be confident in my bobbins for my next project.
Perfect.
Oh, okay. Is there any like never embroider fabrics? Does every fabric have a way of doing it, or can you just think off the top of your head, like just never embroider this fabric?
I don't think I have anything off the top of my head that's like don't ever do that. The only thing I would say is if it's a really loose weave, like a really
yeah, that makes sense.
Like a gauze or something.
Yeah, but I think I have embroidered gauze and it's been fine. I think if we're talking like the really, really loose weave gauze, like the kind that you actually use for bandages, that is probably too loose. Or if you have like a really open weave sweater knit, Because you do need the stitches need something to hook onto. They need something under there, and if they're done right, the stabilizer should be able to hold most of that. But with certain kinds of embroidery, it kind of depends. Like a freestanding lace is designed to hold together, so freestanding lace is, you can have it with no fabric at all. But if you're doing like a light stitching thing on something very open weave, I just don't think it's going to hold once the stabilizer is gone. Other than that, you have to think a little bit when you're doing something that perforates permanently. So that's the same things that you can't pin, basically. Anything like vinyls, cork, leather, anything that a pin will put a permanent hole in or a needle will put a permanent hole in. It's usually fine to embroider. You just want to make sure you're choosing your design well, because if the stitches are too dense, it'll
just fall through.
Yeah, it'll end up breaking it apart, and the pieces will come out. So I always recommend doing something, what I just refer to as light stitching. It doesn't have a lot of fill. It's mostly line work. When you're working on stuff like that, that's my own preference. I've seen people embroider really, really filled things, lots of satin stitches, dense stuff on leather. And those people know what they're doing better than I do. They've made it work. But just be aware that is the kind of thing you really need to do test stitching on. Make sure that you test, something similar to the embroidery on a scrap before you actually try to embroider it, so that you can find out before you start on the actual project if it's going to go awry.
Yeah, especially if you're spending all that time making a beautiful leather jacket and then,
Yeah. Okay, just 2 more questions here. So the one is about any placement tips in relation to the screen and the hoop, because sometimes like the bottom of my screen, this might be different from machine to machine company, but the bottom of my screen on my embroidery machine is like not really the exact bottom of my hoop. And like sometimes, I don't know. It's just, I have a really hard time. Like only half the time it's where it's high enough that I meant it to go. And when I hoop it. So that's just, is there any tips?
Okay. So first thing I'm going to tell you to do is look through your machine settings and see if you can turn on your hoop, because my machine has that same thing where the bottom of the screen is not the bottom of the hoop, but I can actually turn on the settings so it will show me where the hoop actually is, where the embroidery field is actually, because the machine will not embroider all the way to the edges of the hoop, because the foot will start running into the hoop. So there's a border there. So that's just for your reference. That's not an actual answer to the question. So my favorite way to do this, if I'm not sure how to position something right, is to make a template. So basically what you want to do is, if you have embroidery software or you have something free that you can open your design on, there's a really great website, willcom.com. They make embroidery software, but they have a free online one that does some really basic stuff. And it takes a little bit of tweaking there, because they don't always print 1-to-1. But you want to print a picture of your design. If you have, a lot of times if there's a stat sheet with it, those will have actual size designs on them. And you can just print that sheet out. And then you just cut that out. You leave a little space around the edge. You don't have to cut it like really, really precisely. But there will be lines on it that indicate the center of the design. And you clip open those lines and fold the edges back on opposite corners. So you have 2 little triangles that are folded back. And then you've got the center of the design right there. And then you can take your template and you can basically hold it up, figure out where you want it. And then once you've decided exactly where you want to put it, you mark that center through the template, because you folded back the edges. And then you have your exact center spot. And then all you have to do when you hoop it, regardless of where you try to get that as close to the center of the hoop as you can. And then
Yeah.
you can move the machine needle little tiny bits to get it to that exact spot. And that is how I usually hoop something.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that helpful?
That is so helpful. Like, that is a game changer for me. No more guessing, no more eyeballing.
Oh yes, don't
that's
eyeball
so
it.
smart.
Yeah, just figure out exactly where you want that center point to be, and and line the needle up with it. Because even if it doesn't start stitching there before it starts, it will usually
But
be
it's a design
aligned
center.
right in the design center.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so helpful.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that helped.
Yeah.
Oh no, that actually really helped. Thank you.
Templates are great. I use them all the time when I'm trying to position something.
I wouldn't even thought of that. Like, jeez. Okay. Last question.
You should read creative machine embroidery more.
We all should.
I do. I just, I don't know. I look at the pictures.
I know. The last time we did anything about that was like in 2015. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, last question, because this happens to me all the time. What can you really do if you're in the middle of a machine embroidery design and like the top thread breaks, then it like does like a little, and then it realizes that it's check upper thread, and then it's done some of the stitches, and then you have there's like a gap in the embroidery design.
Right. The thread broke. It kept stitching for a few stitches.
It kept stitching. You can't you can't go back. Again, this might be machine to machine, but
You can go back.
oh, you can go back in time?
Yes. Yes, you can
Never
go back.
successfully done that.
So as far as I know, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to, this is the first time I'm going to say this to you today, Meg. You need to read your instructions. Or just look up this one thing on your instructions, because I have never worked with a machine that did not give you the option of scrolling back or forward through your design. And depending on the level of machine you have, like your new one probably will allow you to like tell it exactly what stitch you want to go to. But every one that I've ever worked on will let you just step back one stitch at a time. And that's what you want to do. Once you rethread your machine, you just want to find whatever button or spot that you need to press to step back through your design.
Wow.
And you just step back and you just watch how the hoop moves, because the hoop is what's actually moving. The needle never moves. And you watch until you've actually gone back, so you're overlap. I like to overlap the stitches right before it broke, just to make sure there's no gap. And then you just put your foot down and press go, and it'll start stitching from that point, and it'll stitch right over that gap.
Nice. So
That's
basically,
amazing.
you're saying,
I usually just yes.
Oh
Yeah, here. I'll just say what I do quick. So I usually just start again, or I have had the gap, and then I just take my hand needle and I just kind of go through and fill in the gap. So
You don't need to do that. You can just run your machine back.
Oh my gosh, I literally had no idea you could do that. Definitely going to read my instruction manual.
Yeah, just find that spot, because it will be somewhere. Like I said, I've never worked on a machine that didn't give you that option. It would have to be a really old machine. And like I said, some of the lower end machines, you might have to do one little step at a time. The one I have, you can do it by ones, tens, or hundreds.
Nice.
The Husqvarna Viking Epic here in the office, you can actually say, I want to go to this specific stitch. Of course, I never know what that stitch is. So yeah.
nice. So basically, you're saying that each machine comes with its own flux capacitor. Like, you can go back in time.
You can go back in time.
That's cool. That was like my geekiest moment ever.
But yeah, and honestly, there are certain things that all machines will do. All machines, you can move the needle at least a little bit to get it centered perfectly. All machines should be able to run back in your stitch sequence. So, figure out how to do it. And it doesn't mean you have to read the entire manual cover to cover, but same way, whenever I start working with a new machine, I usually go and I look up how to thread it just to make sure I'm not doing something real stupid. Just go and find where that one spot is that allows you to run back or forward sometimes. Sometimes I work with designs that have like random stitches that'll just stitch like 3 times in a spot, and then it'll jump stitch to another spot, and I don't know why it does that. But if you ever work with those, you can just run it forward until it goes to where you want it to stitch, and you can skip those stitches, and you don't have to pick them out. So
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. So yet again, practice. It sounds like, just seeing, getting
honestly,
used to your machine and doing all that. Like
Definitely.
It would help.
And it is. It can be tough sometimes. I spent most of my time learning on a Baby Lock Destiny. And sometimes when I sit down in front of the Husqvarna Viking Epic, I just sit there and I'm like, I know it's possible to do this. How do I do it on this machine?
Yeah.
But
Right.
once you get to know your own machine, then you can just do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for answering. I know this episode is probably going to be one of our longest, but I just had so many questions, and I hope that our listeners appreciate, and I know they will, because if they don't know as much as embroidery as I do, then I know I learned a whole lot. So thank you so much, Kate.
Oh, you are welcome. It was really fun to answer your questions. And I hope that for those of you out there who don't machine embroider, this was not like hideously tedious.
Yeah.
I hope it
Yeah.
made you interested in this really cool technique that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, Ginger, I
Yes.
think you have a coupon code for
I
us.
do. Yes. For those of you
Ooh.
I had mentioned at the top of the show, we have our Zen embroidery series, basically, that's available. It just went up today. As I mentioned, I was all weekend just madly getting it all ready. And we have Zen 1, Zen 2, and then you can buy it as a combo as well. So I'm going to offer up a $50 off coupon.
Oh, wow.
$50. Yes.
Nice.
So you can use that, and all you have to do is sew and tell 50. It's all caps, and it's the ampersand. Is that the and in the middle?
Yep.
And it will be available. Registration, it runs from today, which today is the 3rd of February. So it runs
we're
from
recording.
when we're recording, from the 3rd of February to March 30th. And registration closes at the beginning of March, which is going to be March 2nd. So use that coupon up until March 2nd. It will be there waiting for you guys. Please check this course out. It really is pretty amazing. If you have very limited or even intermediate skills, it kind of offers up for both of those. And Zen 1 offers up 12 embroidery projects that you can get with it. Plus, you get 15 bonus designs with that. In Zen 2, they have 9 embroidery projects, and you get that same 15 bonus embroidery designs. But if you get the combo, then you get all of it. Nice. So definitely go and check it out. There's tons of information. It is on the So Daily TV site, and highly recommend you guys go check that out when you see some of those designs that are included in the fun projects that they have with it. For years now, I have been dying to try some of these and just haven't gotten around to it, but I'm feeling very motivated now.
Good.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to get in that class.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into our SewJo now. For anyone who doesn't remember, SewJo is what is currently giving us our sewing mojo, making us feel excited about sewing. And we hope that we're generally pushing you towards new SewJos every time we have one of these episodes. So, Meg, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, well, mine's kind of similar to what I was. Last time I was, my SewJo was prepping all my film samples, but now that that's done and great, it went well. I'm back on sewing these camo pants, and now I am 100% going to embroider them because I love mixing like camo with like a girly like floral or something. So now I'm totally going to embroider some because there's lots of flaps and details. So I'm definitely adding some embroidery to that.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cute.
That does. I love that too. It gives that girly look to that, kind of macho camo. I love it.
Yeah, utility kind of, utility pants. So yes, that's mine.
Nice. How about you, Ginger? What's your SewJo?
So I committed to my daughter's play is at the end of the month, and I volunteered to help on costumes. So
my gosh,
they're doing Aladdin. So it was a great one to start with because it's a lot of tunics and genie pants. I'm in charge of the guards, so it has been so much fun. I found a fun little, I think it was like a McCall's pattern that just was a little pair of genie pants. I was telling Meg about them when she was here filming, and the first pair there, I was like, they had pockets and this and that. And after that, I was like, yeah, nobody else is getting pockets. I was like, that's it, we're done. Like, I got 6 more of these to make, so that's not happening. So so I'll definitely I'll give you guys some pictures and you can see them. I mean, they're just made out of muslin, and then we're gonna do vests with different colors in the vests. But oh my God, then it's all ranges of sizes too, because I've got a little tiny first grader who needs these tiny little pair of pants. Oh my God, they're so cute. And then I've got some taller ones that also need them as well. So that's what I've really been kind of focusing. I went to Kate when I was contemplating volunteering, and I went to her and I was like, Kate, do you think I can do this? And she was like, yeah, you can totally do it. I was like, I don't know whether she was lying or not.
I was not.
But I did. I committed, and so far it's been a lot of fun. So I have until the end of the month. I still have 5 more pairs of pants to make, or no, 4 more pairs of pants to make, and only 1 more of the tunics to make. So
nice.
I do need to kind of tailor the tunics a little more and like trim them around them, but I'm excited about that. And then I have to say, my other thing, Meg, you looked so adorable on film last week when we were filming with you. She had all these high-waisted pants. I want to make me some high-waisted pants. I was like, oh my gosh, like especially the jeans. I loved those. I'm like obsessed with them. So I want to find a good pattern, and I want to definitely do that and make a pair of those.
Nice.
How about you, Kate? What do you got?
Oh, well, actually, you guys are so excited. I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm kind of in a slump right now. I'm kind of losing my SewJo a little bit. And if you've listened to our sewing slump episode, which is almost a year old now, I think, you'll know that this doesn't actually bother me that much. But it's just part of my cycle of sewing. But I'm sitting at this spot right now where nothing's really inspiring me, and I've got lots of things that I could be working on, but I just can't right now, and that is absolutely fine with me. I was recently looking through a bunch of hand embroidered things, actually, and so I've been thinking that maybe if I can get the cat to leave me alone for a little while, I might try to do some small hand embroidery projects just to kind of get me back in there and see how I'm feeling. But we'll see if that actually pans out. And Maggie.
Well, I can jumpstart you and get you some genie pants.
if you need help with it, if you're in a dire straits, I'll be happy to help you with genie pants.
I may take you up on that, but I don't know if I'll get you out of your slump or not. But
I don't know either. But costume sewing is kind of my thing. So,
yep. If anybody's going to appreciate it, it would be you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't have much of a SewJo right now, but that's okay with me.
That is, yeah.
Nice.
Well, let's move on to our Sew and Tell. So last episode, we asked you guys to indulge us and tell us why do you guys listen, or why do you like listening to Sew and Tell? And we just appreciate really I read every single one, and they just all warm my heart. So I thank you all. And now we're just going to read a few of them.
All right. We're going to start with C. McCall 522 Sews, who said, I love the vibe all 3 of you have, the different perspectives you share, and that you're not afraid to admit mistakes or giggle about things that maybe get messed up. You really keep it real. #happy stitching. And I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you
same.
so much.
Nice. Yay, I get to read one too. I'm so excited. So this one is from me, Yana, and I think it's Lila. Is that how you say it? Lil.
That's how I'd guess it.
Yeah, and she says, I don't have a sewing community here in Brazil. They listen in Brazil. That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And it's she says, when I listen to people who get along so well having a chat, it makes me feel like I actually have someone to share my hobby with. That's so sweet. That's awesome.
So sweet. I'm so happy we can make you feel that way.
Yeah. And the last one from Natalie Strand, they said, whenever I listen to an episode, I get really fired up to sew something for myself. I enjoy every part of the podcast, but I especially love your friendly banter. I don't have many in-person sewing friends, so it's fun to have the company. And I love that too. I always get fired up to whatever the topic we're talking about. I feel like after every episode, I'm ready to jump in. Like right now, I'm ready to open up my instruction manual and embroider that camo.
We have her saying it on tape now.
We do.
We got it recorded. I know. Well, and I know on my way into work, like I got to listen to you guys. I wanted to be up on the latest episode, and it is amazing. You guys do fire us up. Like you really, really do. And can I just say, in the last one, you guys had mentioned how mint chocolate chip is your favorite flavor. Yeah, count me in. That's
Really?
me too. I was like, I'm an ice cream sister
my
too.
gosh.
Oh, you know the funniest thing? We asked Amanda that the other day. She's like, "Yeah, mint chocolate chip."
Oh my God,
So
what is it?
apparently, it's just a thing here.
That's right. We need to
That
get like
is
barrels
so
of it and just have it
crazy.
available.
Yeah, next time Meg's in town, we're having like a mint chocolate chip party.
I love it.
I think in an upcoming CME there needs to be a mint chocolate chip like cone embroidery design just to like, because I want that on like something.
Everything.
Oh my gosh. And actually, if you go to the Zen course, there is a cute little ice cream cone design. It's very, very cute.
Oh, is there?
Just saying.
Oh, and you could do it in mint green and oh my gosh,
there we go.
so in.
Oh, definitely.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much for tuning in and all your lovely expertise, Kate, again.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much to everybody who wrote nice things to us on our question. And I just realized we forgot to ask this week's question, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did that again.
She's jumping ahead.
Like in the middle of my
Guys.
sentence, I'm like, oh no.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I should ask it. Oh,
Yes.
my papers are all in a tizzy.
you need me to do
section gets, I do have it.
Yes, I do. All right. So for this episode, in tune with our embroidery question,
God.
we're going to ask, what's your favorite embroidery style? And we left that very open-ended. What style means exactly is kind of up to you. So give us your answers.
Yeah.
And in the
I think you might need to put me off the show and tell section. I forgot to ask the question twice now. I'm banned from this section
banned
of
from
the
this section.
podcast.
All right. I'll note. Meg is banned from this section. Okay. We won't ban you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for talking embroidery with me. I actually really enjoy talking about machine embroidery and thinking about machine embroidery, and you guys asked such good questions. This was really fun for me. I hope you guys had fun too.
Oh my goodness, I learned so much. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. Anytime I can come back, please just ask. I'll be here.
Definitely, we will do that. All right, everybody. Thanks. Happy
Bye.
stitching.
Bye.
Happy stitching.
For links to everything we talked about in this episode, go to our show notes page at sewdaily.com/sewandtell. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at sewandtellpodcast@goldenpeakmedia.com or visit us on Instagram at sewandtellpod. Answer the Sew and Tell question, tell us your SewJo, or just leave us some feedback. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. And please leave us a review, ideally a good one, because that helps listeners like you find our podcast. And tell your sewing friends about us too. Thanks for listening, and happy stitching. Sew and Tell is produced by Meg Healy, Amanda Carestio, and me, Kate Zaynard. Our consulting producer is Ron Doyle, and our executive producer is Jared Mayer.